going to Kelowna Comic Con? What's the difference about, what's the reason why we go to Kelowna twice a year?
I feel like there's more to do without having to deal with too much driving.
And there's wine.
Well, and there's, well, yeah, of course there's wine.
So what are your thoughts? I can see Viticulture is...
Viticulture here, it's probably top 5 favorite game for me. I absolutely love the card play in it. You got a simple worker placement game, but you got 4 stacks of cards, I think maybe 5 with the expansion stuff. Mm-hmm. But using those cards to formulate a strategy is why I love the game so much. Not to mention the clean, fantastic worker placement aspect.
And you have the Essential Edition, which combines the Tuscany expansion.
Yeah.
What would you change?
Nothing.
Thanks, man. This is Jason. Much more handsome half. I still love the fact that he has a secret entrance to his game room. There's the flaw in the matrix. Strangest geographical just anomaly. Yeah. So we are at this dollar store. This dollar store right here in Kelowna on our journey, and I actually found this. So looks like we're going to be talking about this one as well. I'm doing a review for Viticulture because they're all the wineries. Yep. What are your thoughts on Viticulture? This is, by the way, playing some games. Look at that. Free play.
Believe it or not, I haven't actually had the chance to play Viticulture yet.
We're at Rollingdale.
Where are you from?
We're from Prince George. Would you say, by the way, would you say Viticulture was like the first big game that we ever got? I mean, it wasn't the first game we ever got because that would have been the Pandemic and Sheriff of Nottingham. But I think Viticulture was probably our first like new age game. That one burst the doors after that. After that, we just kept on buying and buying. The two things we were into heavily: wine and board games. And there's a board game called Viticulture, which deals with wine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I can do this. I can crouch. But always bring water because you always hydrate yourself.
And cleanse the palate.
Yeah, cleanse the palate, but that's how you go to 16 wineries in a day. You constantly hydrate. I'm afraid people might get upset if they're seeing me drink on camera, but.
Mount Boucherie?
That's Beaumont, that's Volcanic Hills, and that's Mount Boucherie. My fiance collects these beads.
Oh, shush.
Hey, it was my idea.
Yeah, it was your idea, so I blame you for getting me into it.
So Viticulture began with the core box, and then they followed it up with their expansion called Tuscany, which kind of confirmed where the game was being set. It was set in the Tuscany region. Now, Viticulture actually means the harvesting of grapes, and not the making of wine, technically. In fact, it was only mentioned once in the new manual that it's actually set in Tuscany. Otherwise, it's a relatively generic location. I need to preface that I love Viticulture. I just love it. It's one of my all-time favorite games. Probably one of the best that Stonemaier has ever produced. But that doesn't mean it's without potential improvement or potential flaws. I would say, I think Scythe is only marginally better, potentially. But Viticulture will always kind of be personal to me because of its subject matter. I mean, it's about wine, and I drink a lot of wine. But I am going to go into a few issues I have with the game, both dealing with mechanics and thematics. And I think it's important that I do so because if you love a thing, you have to be able to criticize a thing. And as the great Mark Bernardin once told me,
loving something is not loving it because it's flaws.
Yeah.
It's loving it first despite its flaws, and then because of those flaws. But those flaws make it, nobody wants to love a perfect thing, because a perfect thing doesn't need you to love it.
Wow. So yeah, I love Viticulture. But Viticulture is not a perfect thing. This is Mission Hill. I'm not saying that the BC wine scene is superior to Tuscany. I mean, on pure thematics, I was always curious why they picked Tuscany of all locations. I mean, yeah, they've been growing wine there for like 3,000 years, which is, pretty good. I've been to Tuscany. They make the best olive oil there. My best guess puts the number of wineries in Tuscany to about, I'd say just about 100. About 100 wineries or so in the Tuscany region, which is, not bad. And that includes wineries you can visit as a brand. Ooh, this is nice. I mean, every family in Italy has a winery. I mean, that's just obvious. I mean, I'm Portuguese, and I can tell you right now, every Portuguese family has a winery. I live in Prince George, British Columbia, and from my hometown to the border, just south of Osoyoos, it's the fastest growing wine region in the world. How many wines are in this area, you wonder? Would you believe it's 370? That's right, 370, and that's a dated number, so it's probably, might as well round up, it's 400 by now. And yet the game about the Okanagan is not about wine. It's a variation of Carcassonne. No wines to be found. What a missed opportunity. Wouldn't it have been cool if the game allowed you to change the region, so it's not just Tuscany, that you can change the region between, say, California to, Bordeaux to Champagne to the Okanagan? I'm not saying that you had to. I'm just pie in the sky, just hopefully thinking. So let's talk mechanics. A lot of these Stonemaier games are what you call engine builders, and it's probably my all-time favorite genre in the whole wide world. I mean, you got the abstract ones like Space Base, Gizmos. The Stonemeier's done other games like that, like obviously Wingspan and Scythe. And Viticulture was kind of the predecessor to all of those. There's a helicopter landing right now. That's how some of the really posh people arrive for their wine tours at Mission Hill. And I know that because I did that once.
Not that we're posh.
Not that we're posh. Do you remember that? That was a good day. That was a good day,
That
right?
was a great day.
That was a great day.
That was a. Oh, by the way, we're getting on a helicopter.
By the way, we're getting on a helicopter.
Look out.
Yeah, that was a good day. And I'm not. Wait, you're probably wondering, hey, who was that in the camera? Yeah, that was Denise Crosby from Star Trek. Long story. Oh, I got a new winery. We have a new winery. This is called Friend, not Friend, by the way. Now, Viticulture was their first big game. Like, it was like the one that put them on the map. And I can appreciate that. And it set the course for a lot of their later publications to follow. Oh, and we will be talking about Essentials, by the way, the Essential edition of Viticulture, not the core edition, the one that has the Tuscany or elements from the Tuscany expansion already incorporated into it. This is Ancient Hill. To set up, you lay out these color-coded cards: green vine cards, purple wine order cards, summer and winter visitor cards. Each player receives a vineyard map, 3 field cards in increasing size, and a random draw of Papa and Mama cards, the last 2 dictating starting resources, which differ for each player, similar to the asymmetric boards in Scythe. You pick a color and receive all the tokens of your color: payment, tracker, structures, rooster, regular, and grande worker. Give you an idea how close these wineries are to each other. That's O'Rourke, and that's Intrigue. It's neat that everyone's starting resources are different, but I keep the Mama and Papa cards on hand, like in my play area. They offer personality to your play area, but they do nothing else, and that's disappointing. I love the fact that in Scythe, every faction is completely different, and they play completely different, and they act different. But these starting resource cards, they change their starting resources, but that's it. And I'd love it if these actually offered in-game mechanical changes, something to make your winery completely unique. And that one was the social mode or the road social mode? Oh, the Merlot. I do have, occasionally I will like a Merlot. So place all your starting resources and structures aside. Place your point tracker on 0 and give the starting player the grapes. We're back on the road. Well, now we're going to Viticulture. We've left Kelowna. The other suggestion is to take bread. Bread is a fantastic way to kind of absorb some of the alcohol. At least that's been my belief. I don't know if it's actually true. So water and bread are always really good combinations.
Look at the grapes.
Look at the grapes. Forecast, 100% chance of wine. Oh, I love small boutique wineries.
So this is the 2016 Merlot. Let me just get it to come out.
There's nothing wrong with Merlot. Viticulture is a worker placement game with a game round encompassing 5 phases over 1 in-game year. In spring, the grapes player, places his or her rooster somewhere along the wake-up chart, followed by other players clockwise. Now, this arrangement denotes actual play order throughout the rest of the turn, but those that select to go later will receive additional bonuses, including more money, straight victory points, or even an additional worker. Now, once everyone has placed their rooster, play order begins with the summer phase, which brings us to these meeples. Each location has a limit on the number of workers that can go there. A classic mechanic, except for the grande worker, the big worker, which ignores space limitations. In a 2-player game, locations are limited to 1. In larger games, this secondary area unlocks, allowing for an additional reward. This seems new.
Like, very new.
This winery is called Squeezed. Now, you can build a structure if you have the money. You can draw a vine card. You can plant a vine on a field it can fit into, and you can sell a field. Or you can give a tour to gain money. Now, structures improve the capability of these placements. Now, one observation I found from numerous plays is that I rarely ever plant all my grapes across all my fields. I usually only plant them in maybe 1 or 2. You get these field cards specifically so that you can sell them, and you generally will sell at least 1, which is a great strategy to do early on because it gives you a lot of needed resources so you can buy more structures later in the game. And I end up doing that nearly every time. So it's actually, because of the way the gameplay works, it's actually in your best interest to cram as many grapes into every field as possible, because later on when you go to harvest these grapes, you get to harvest 1 field. So it's in your best interest to basically cram as many grapes as possible. And of course, if you suffer from OCD like me, you'll end up constantly adjusting these cards so they fit perfectly on your tableau. Almost. Don't touch it, almost. Got it. Now, back off. I said back off. Start over. Now, these symbols on your grape cards don't actually mean much. They're just specific varietals, but basically it just comes down to red or white with numeric values. But the actual varietal names are a nice touch, and these are actual specific grape varietals that you will find in the Tuscany region. Well, at least most of them. Wait a second.
No, if anybody orders Merlot, I'm leaving. I am not drinking any Merlot!
Yes, like I said, there's actually not a problem with Merlot. Merlot is fine. Isn't it weird that one clip literally depressed the stock of Merlot? And it didn't actually in California, but in BC, the Merlot sales actually did drop. There was also a surge in Pinot, which was also connected to the movie. Look at the dog, just blazing out in the sun. Hope he's not dead. That'd be depressing. Very dark. Many of these grapes, by the way, some of them actually have building requirements, which you need to upgrade in order to plant them. All the wineries in the BC region require a tasting fee. $3 to $5 generally. Some are 10. Very few of them are 10, but most of them are about 5. That gets waived if you buy a bottle. So you'll end up buying a bottle. I mean, if you're traveling, you may not be able to if you're coming from the States or wherever, because you have to bring the bottles back. But if you're a Canadian resident, you're going to end up buying a bottle from every single location. Anyway, you can also play a summer visitor card, which offers some unique bonuses. But after that basically ends the summer phase. So we're going to have a picnic. Now, during the fall phase, players can draw either a summer or a winter visitor card. This does not cost an action, leading to the winter phase, which shifts play from this yellow side to this blue side. We are at Machina, discussing the board games that are wine related. Yeah, there's one called Viticulture.
There's one called Wine Nerd, but it was too simple.
Yeah, no, Viticulture is the opposite of that. Yeah,
In a board game.
Yeah, in a board game. Okay. It's very popular. It's a very popular game, but it's very complex. There's also one called Vinhos, which is Portuguese, which is also very complicated. But the only one in the Okanagan is a tile-based game based around the lake. So we need a Okanagan wine-themed board game, I think. So any remaining workers you have not used in the earlier phase can be used now. This includes harvesting grapes from one field, placing these clear glass tokens on matching numbers along your crush pad. You can draw one wine order card, which allows you to gain points. You can obtain one additional worker, which is a recommended early game action. You can play a winter visitor card. You can make up to 2 wine tokens.
And listen to tractors all day long.
And listen to tractors all day long. Shifting grapes from your crush pad to your wine cellar. When harvesting, you can combine the same color to increase your wine number, if you want. Likewise, when you shift the token from the crush pad to the cellar, though your cellar has listed maximum capacities based on the size you built, harkening back to this game's roots in engine building. Now, you can combine a red and white to create a rosé, which I am not a huge fan of. Well, not in the game. The rule is fine. I mean in real life. I prefer a rosé that is made directly just from red. By the way, did you know you can make an almost entirely white wine from red grapes? Sparkling requires 2 red and 1 white, which, by the way, is not how you make a sparkling wine, just saying. Kind of weird is all. I mean, red sparkling, though rare, does exist. Italy makes some of it. You just don't make it that way. So, like I said, with exception of just a handful of opportunities, all the points are earned by filling out order cards, reduce your wine supply by the demands of the card, and gain the reward. This includes victory points and an increase in residual payments. Our round ends finally with year end. All grape and wine tokens increase by 1, limited by cellar size. Workers are returned, residual payment is awarded, player hands are discarded down to 7 cards, and the grapes token shifts to the next player, and the game continues. Viticulture suffers from 2 minor quibbles, all surrounding its end game. No, not that end game. Oh, by the way, what an incredible view. Look at this. Wow. This place is called Border Town. I keep on wanting to call it Border Town. Anyway, so with Scythe, a player that triggers the end may not be the player that wins. Often, another player running a longer conservative strategy may pass the leader as the final points are added. Wingspan is like this as well, but with Viticulture, the winner triggers the end game. The first to pass this threshold triggers the end, and although final points may adjust where everyone stands, often enough the player that triggered it won the game, which can be discouraging to those players hanging behind, realizing they had no hope in winning. Having a picnic here. We're at what's this place called?
Sonora?
Sonora. We're at Sonora, and there's a dog that's been wanting to get food from us for the last 20 minutes. And he gave up. And he's all depressed now. Additionally, despite the game being over 90 minutes to play, everyone's resident engines never really get up to speed. The moment a player starts building up steam, the game usually will just suddenly end, denying players that elation that win or lose, they were able to at least do one cool thing. All too often, a player will trigger the end to the frustration of losing players that never felt their play area was properly locking in. Yeah. Would you believe it that Jamie Stegmaier doesn't drink wine? I know. I asked him. And it's just kind of weird because Viticulture needs a revisit. It needs a second edition. I mean, yeah, sure. The robots, the birds, that's all cool, you know, with your tapestry, but I think Viticulture needs a revisit. Oh, it's adorable. So that was the one with all the solar panels. So, here's the thing. No, I'm quite literally, it's why we call it here's the thing. So this is Vinamite. Vinamite? 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 Is it Vinamite? Vinamite? What is it? What is it?
Vin amité.
There you go, he's French. This is Fairview Cellars. This is Pipe Dreams. We're at Blue Mountain. The art style is fantastic. I love these little wooden buildings. You can also employ friendlier rules without as much take that. You can play a solitaire mode as well. By far, the best wine-themed game on the market. So I'm at 8th generation. So by the way, obviously, don't check continuity on any of these videos because my shirt's going to change. Sometimes I'm wearing glasses, and that's kind of obvious. I admit not playing a lot of wine games. For example, Vinhos. I know, I'm Portuguese, I should own Vinhos. But you know how hard it is to get that game? I mean, check out these prices on eBay. Amazon prices are not that much better. It's like twice the price of Viticulture. And did you know there's a Winopoly? No, seriously. The other board games, they're kind of obscure, and they've received middling reviews at best, not compared to Viticulture, which is a massive success. I think it's safe to say that Viticulture somewhat stands on its own as the premier and leading wine-themed game on the market. Not only that, it's probably one of the best games I've ever played, period. Which brings us to the expansions. Of this Rhine expansion, which gives you new summer and winter cards, I have to admit, I think we'll be playing with those from now on. I like the idea. It does make the game a bit longer. It gives you more functionality that focus on the business rather than just generating points. Some of the cards are a little confusing though, and that's going to be one issue. Some of the rules are a little wishy-washy, a little bit muddled, a little confusing. But I think we would always be playing with this expansion from now on, just because we like a nice complex game, and the Rhine expansion does definitely make the game more complex. So I'm at a winery called Lunescence. Now, one thing I will state, I absolutely adore 99% of all the wineries in this region. They're fantastic. Even the wines I don't really care for. I love their presentation, I love the geography, I love the architecture. The one issue that I will state is the growing trend of, magic. It's called biodynamic, and the biodynamic is a type of farming technique that employs energies, tidal energy, the energy of the moon, with places like Lunescence and another one called Summerhill Pyramid in the Okanagan. They are harvesting and planting their grapes based on lunar cycles and feeding off the energy. Summerhill Pyramid actually ages their grapes in a pyramid structure on site and claim that it improves the quality of their wine, thus, of course, justifying the increase in price. I can't state enough that as a skeptic, I love the wine culture when it comes to what they can try to bring out of grapes based off of flavor profile, the aging, location, and the soil. But I definitely have a personal criticism, a negative opinion on those wineries employing the biodynamic mentality.
This place is adorable.
Oh, look at that. The first thing I'd probably recommend is the drawing of cards. You can get really screwed over with the vine cards if you draw one and you're just getting reds and reds and reds and reds and reds. You're not getting any whites. And it can get really troubling, especially when you're drawing wine cards, and you're drawing wine cards that are always asking for whites or rosés or sparklings and so forth. And I have lost games, not many, a lot of games of Viticulture I end up winning, but a lot of the games I lose are because of the random draw. So my only really big homebrew would be to draw two and pick the best one. Now, oddly enough, there's an advanced rule with Essentials that when you're just drawing your starting cards, mamas and the papas, you can draw two and pick your favorite. I would still employ that, but there's so little variety, really unique variety with those mama and papa cards. I've never needed to, but with the vine cards, the summer winter cards, and the order cards, absolutely, especially the vine and order cards, I would definitely have the rule where you draw two cards and pick your best, and then the other one goes into the discard pile. I think that's also really important. The other rule I would definitely suggest would be a less aggressive mode. Now, they have a less aggressive mode that's less aggressive for for a lot of players. In a two-player less aggressive, I would unlock that extra bonus space. So the first person who gets there gets the bonus, but doesn't lock out that location for the other person. So they can put a regular meeple down there without locking that location out. So that's my other suggestion for a less aggressive game. By the way, this is Thornhaven, but we're in it's on top of a place called Giant Head Mountain, which is in Summerland, and like that's nuts. Look how beautiful that is. Oh, not that thing. That's a big giant fan. By the way, if someone were to ask me what my favorite varietal is, it would probably be Pinot Gris for white and Pinot Noir for red. And it's entirely opinionated. Anyone who says your favorite varietal is wrong is a jerk. Don't listen to them. Don't ever take their advice. Everyone's taste buds are different. And some people like certain tastes. Not only that, but it also depends on where you go. I've had some bad Pinots, I've had some good Pinots. Pinot Gris and Rieslings generally don't steer me wrong. I generally do like those regardless of where I go. Gewürztraminer and a few others, Viognier, it kind of depends on the winery. I've had some good Cave Sauves and some good Merlots. Malbec is kind of the one wine I kind of steer away from. And I'm also not as big a fan of the Bordeaux blend. Whenever someone say this is a Bordeaux blend or the Meritage blend, a Meritage style, I generally won't get too excited. But that is entirely an opinion. It is not a fact. We are at Estate Thurn, which I assume means that the winery is run by the evil creatures from the movie John Carter. So this place is called Four Shadows. I'm foreshadowing lunch. We're at the top end of the Naramata Bench. The Naramata Bench is, 3 kilometers across? And there's about 40 wineries. This is Nicole. No, I mean the winery is called Nicole. Or Nicole. This is Nicole, my fiance. What did you think? What do you think of Viticulture?
I think it's a fun game. It's nice that you can do different, not necessarily different roles, but different actions, I guess. And each one you do but you do different things that are related to winemaking, which is really cool. I like that they encompass the whole idea of winemaking without having it over complex. It's a good game to introduce yourself before you get a more complex game.
Which is what we did with us. Is there anything you would change?
Probably the whole drawing 2 cards and picking one, especially with the grapes.
Yeah.
Because the random luck of picking those grapes is you can end up with too many reds and you need a white and you could never get a white.
Yeah. Same thing with the order cards, trying to get an order that works, but yeah. What's your score out of 10?
Probably 9.
Yeah.
I think it's a fun game. Like I said, it's not too complex, but it still gives you enough options. And it's fun.
So that's Nicole's opinion at the Nicole Winery in
Nicole Winery.
Oh, it's close. Nicole Winery in Naramata. By the way, if you ever want an object lesson of which wineries to avoid, which wineries to attend to, generally the rule is if they have a tasting fee more than $10, avoid them. This is where you want to go. This is called the Angelo. It's off the beaten path, which means it's only about 30 seconds off the main road instead of being right off the main road. Sal, who's the winemaker, fantastic guy. Bar none, some of the best Tempranillo you'll find around. Also, really, really good ports or tawnies. But anyway, this is a fantastic winery. One of my all-time favorites. It's the only winery that I will visit every single time. So I am at Single Tree in the Naramata bench. So on Nicole's review, mine's pretty similar, 8.5 out of 10. One of my favorite games I think I've ever played. Fun, lots of playthroughs. I won a lot. A couple suggestions for improvement, in my humble opinion, and a hope for a revised edition. Which brings us to Tuscany. No, not that Tuscany. This Tuscany. So what's going on? Well, after the original Viticulture, they released Tuscany, a legacy-style expansion offering 3 tiers of mechanical modules that added complexity within the game. These included special workers, arboriculture, and fromage, which is always a better word than cheese. Whoever wins a game can select the expansion to be included next. So why didn't they include them all? Well, it is a lot of game and a huge jump in density from base Viticulture. Now, fast forward to the Essential Viticulture, which included elements from Tuscany, including the Mama and Papas and some of the advanced visitors, leaving much of the rest of Tuscany behind until the release of the Essential Tuscany. Not gonna lie, Jamie's a solid businessman. Essential Tuscany brings over several features from the old Tuscany, ones not found in Essential Viticulture, including the advanced board, structures, and advanced meeples. The advanced board is 2-sided, with or without orange structure cards. Players also receive these scythe-looking stars, which allow them to claim regions of wine country. The League Up chart is now much more complex, offering additional bonuses each season. There are now 4 complete seasons. The game proceeds normally, except you can now place stars in a region of Tuscany, gaining immediate rewards and potentially additional victory points based on if you control a region by the end of the game. Now, the spaces include more bonuses than the normal game, and there are more options to place workers, including trading any resource or reward for any other resource or reward, selling wine tokens, or placing or moving stars across the Tuscany region. In regard to the special workers in the old Tuscany, it offered over 60 additional meeples. Essential reduced this down to 14, but this was a production decision and the rules regarding them didn't change. Draw 2 special workers, assign a neutral meeple to distinguish them, and when you buy a worker, you can spend an extra coin to grab your special meeple. Instead, you're still limited to 6 meeples. Structures add this extension to your board. You draw cards like any other, and can spend money to place them in one of the 2 spaces you possess, or in an empty field. Some offer additional points, action opportunities, or new rules. Alas, not all of Tuscany modules were ported over to Essential. Both arboriculture and fromage were left behind, and I so badly wanted aged cheese. Of course, you could get core Tuscany instead of Essential, assuming you can find it. I understand why the rules from Essential Tuscany were not included in Essential Viticulture. It does make the game a lot more complicated. It also makes the game several orders of magnitude better. The advanced board, the additional bonuses, it makes the game longer, allows more strategy. Players can't screw over one another as easily. It also fixes some of the design limitations regarding player choice. Many of the initial objections regarding Essential Viticulture are fixed with Tuscany, increasing its score to 9.5. The only reason why it doesn't get a perfect 10 is that you need to buy the complete Viticulture to play it. So many people play Essential Viticulture unaware that a superior version exists when you buy another box. Now, unfortunately, this isn't actually the end of our trip. So, those people who are just here for the game review, you can turn off now. Those people who want a little bit more of a tour through this magnificent Okanagan wine country, well, I'll have a playthrough of our last game of Viticulture as we tour the rest of wine country.
So these are the wine bottles that we acquired on the trip while we were recording our review. And this is the rest of the collection. And these are all wines from BC. And because my fiance loves crafts, this is her display of almost entirely BC wines. There's a prisoner in there. These are all the little knickknacks. And of course, as we mentioned, her beads. Don't worry, we still have more board games. By the way, I'm no longer in what is considered BC wine country. I'm north, in my hometown. Consider a future expansion, with luck. Most of central BC is expected to field various varietals in the next few years. Grapes are fickle, and you can't deny climate change and viticulture. As global temperatures increase, so does the latitude on which most grapes grow. A large portion of Champagne now comes out of England. The number of wineries in Michigan have increased from 16 to 130 in 10 years. My fiancé and I spent time touring Washington wine country a few years back, and my hometown got his first winery around the same time. So that's my review for the complete Essential Viticulture. This is Chris from Deus Ex Machina.
Thanks so much for watching another Dice Tower video. If you enjoy our videos, subscribe to the channel for more fun, comprehensive board game coverage. Also, consider joining us at one of our events. Come to Dice Tower Retreat, a small, intimate gathering where gaming is king. Join us for Dice Tower Cruise, the largest board game cruise. Attend Dice Tower West in Las Vegas for gaming fun on the West Coast, or Dice Tower East in Orlando in sunny Florida. Dice Tower Conventions, the friendliest gaming conventions on Earth. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.